now that we've imported our animatic into Pro Tools along with our dialogue track, we're going to want to clean up that dialogue track, do any basic audio edits to it before we start adding backgrounds and effects and music. So before we go along, I'm going to do some simple filtering because in listening I found a giant bump in the audio track. I'll just let you hear it right here.
I wrote you a lot about my motherland's
On Motherland you hear a boom.
I wrote you a lot about my motherland.
Like it's...
I wrote you a lot about my motherland's...
It's kind of easier to hear slower down. So that's it right there. That's the offending noise. We want to just eliminate all the bass from this recording because all the way through it's the same character. So I can treat this entire dialogue track the same way. I can either double click in the track, or if I hover down at the bottom half of the track, you see how my cursor changes to a hand tool. So I'll just grab that track and I'll go up to the audio suite menu. I don't think you can quite see the menu items in this screencast, unfortunately, but it's called Audio Suite. And then you would grab the EQ 7-band, and this is a graphical representation of the audio file we've highlighted there. On the y-axis, up and down, you'll see audio represented in volume, up to 18 decibels or down to -18. From left to right on the x-axis you see frequencies, so down to 20 hertz where humans can hear, and all the way up to 20,000 hertz or 20 kilohertz where humans start not being able to hear. In reality, if you're over the age of 20 something, you probably can't hear much beyond 16 kilohertz anyway. Anyways, that's the explanation of this plugin. And we're just going to treat this file. And I know that that plosive is that little pop we heard right here is the problem. So what I'm going to do is just sort of listen to this one region over and over again until I get the problem fixed. So down here on the plugin, you get a speaker icon and a bypass icon. The speaker allows you to preview the audio. I'll just click that now.
Lot about my motherland's, plot about my motherland's, plot about my mother.
Okay, and the bypass button will show you the raw, untouched audio before you processed it through this plugin. So the process is to play the preview button and then start tweaking, doing something with the audio, you know, moving things around, and checking back and forth with it bypassed, so you're listening to the original and then you're listening to the processed audio. When you're happy with everything, you'd click render. So let's just go ahead.
Plot about my motherland's, plot about my mother.
So it's a low frequency problem. We're dealing with a boom. So let's go up here into the high pass filter. We want high frequencies to pass through the filter. That's why it's called an HPF. I'm going to turn the filter on, and we can click and drag on the little gray ball, and that allows us to move where it starts cutting off. So I'll just show you, and then this is the steepness of the slope of the filter, how much you want it to cut off. Gentle or aggressive or in the middle. We're going to pick a middle one, 12 decibels per octave. No hard and fast rule here, just do what sounds good. And while I'm playing back, I'm going to move this frequency cutoff point until we get rid of that boom.
Plot about my motherland's, 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 plot about my mother.
Good, I like that. Let's just listen to it in bypass mode.
Plot about my motherland's, plot about my motherland's, plot about my motherland's, plot about my motherland's.
I'm just going to say I'm happy enough with that. So I'm going to click render. Oh, no, I'm not going to click render. I could either click render. I'll show you what that does. That just changed that one file right there.
I wrote you a lot about my motherland's beauty and madness.
But listen to what happens as we come in and out of the file. this newly created file that we took away that, I'll just undo so you can see that little spike that we had. Listen to what happens to the quality of the background noise. I'm going to turn my mic down so you don't hear my background. Bye-bye.
In the last year, I wrote you a lot about my motherland's beauty and madness.
Okay, so you'll notice as we come into this region, everything gets really clean all of a sudden, and we don't hear a lot of background audio, rumble, but you can sort of see that rumble here, and here, and here. So instead of process just the region we want, since this is one big character file, we'll just undo that. And I'm going to grab the whole file. I just clicked with the hand tool, okay? I'm going to zoom out, show you I've got the whole file. Now back with the EQ, since I've already picked my my frequency adjustment, I'm just going to go ahead and render. And it's going to render this entire file now. So I'm going to close that. It will have fixed that problem. Let's just double check in here.
I wrote you a lot about my motherland's beauty and madness.
I mean, it's still audible, but let's just compare. This is what it was.
I wrote you a lot about my motherland.
So it's way less obtrusive. That's usually all you can hope to do, is just make things a little better. You can't fix absolute problems, but you can do a lot with Pro Tools. So the next thing we want to do is actually just clean up what I call top and tailing. And that's just kind of getting rid of all the stuff at the beginning and end of the phrases. So you click with your cursor tool, zoom in. Again, you can either use the forward and back zoom button up here, or I'm using Option button and my mouse button or mouse scroll wheel to scroll in and out, and Option Shift to scroll up and down. So let's just have a listen.
Dear Richard. Dear Richard.
So there's a little bit of stuff at the beginning we don't need. I'm just going to go ahead and select it, and then I'm going to hit the delete key, and that gets rid of it. Let's zoom out for a sec and see that we've got nothing at the beginning. Get rid of that. Go back to our little phrase there.
Dear Richard.
And with everything the top and tail, this is what I mean. If I hover at the top left of my clip here, I can click and drag in and create a little fade in.
Dear Richard.
And then there's a what sounds to be a mouse click here. So let's just get rid of that too. Really, you'd want to retake this. You'd want someone to re-record this spot, but we don't have that luxury today, so we're just going to try and eliminate the problems as we find them. And there's still some more of that sound there. Oops, it's easy to get lost. So let's just trim it up until we... Still not quite. It looks like it is all of that stuff, so unfortunately we're going to have to miss maybe part of the D of Richard.
Richard.
And we don't need that stuff.
Richard. This will be...
Okay, so let's just go all the way to there. And we'll just fade that out a little bit. Not at all what I would want to do. I'd want to have it re-recorded, but I'm just showing you how you can edit. So I'm making my...
This will be
my top and tails.
Last letter to you.
So you see at the end of you, you can hear her room tone in the original recording just suddenly die.
Letter to you.
Right around here. Now if I zoom up, perhaps you could see that better. There you go.
Yeah.
Now this is digital silence and this is the room tone. So we might as well just get rid of that. So I click select, press delete, fade out, made my top and tail, okay?
My last letter to you.
Next is to eliminate all this space.
In the last year.
And fade in.
In the last year, I wrote you a lot about my motherland's beauty and madness.
Now you could get rid of this stuff in the middle, but you know, it's up to you.
I wrote you a lot about my motherland's beauty and madness.
There we go. Get rid of that. So as you see, this you would just move through your timeline.
Madness.
Getting rid of everything that you don't need. It's very tedious, but it will give you a cleaner track.
And though borders seem to be open nowadays.
So we want to get rid of those little clicks and pops, of course. So this is the technique. Just move through your entire piece doing this, and that is step 1 to prepare your dialogue. Now you would do that.
It is just an illusion.
You would do that, sorry, for each dialogue track you have. This is just voice 1 or Anna's voice, whatever. If I had another character underneath that, I'm just going to do a quick little example. And I'm going to borrow a couple things. Let's pretend the purple track here is character 2, right? This is how it would look. Each voice would have their own track, and you could treat each voice separately. It's very important that you don't move things around like I just did, though, right? If you move a track, it's now out of sync, so you can do all the trimming you want, just keep the actual tracks in place. So now we've got, that's what our dialogue track would look like. I'm just going to quickly do the rest and I'll come right back. We're back after a couple minutes of top and tailing. This is what we get as a result, a bunch of little chopped up audio clips. That's what our dialogue track's going to look like. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is import some backgrounds and sound effects and maybe some music. And then in a following video, once we've got them all laid out and placed, we will mix and export. All right, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.